It's a land of pride and passion, of toreadors and Catholic kings, of regal processions and flamenco dance. It's a landscape of heightened senses and a history that moves at a syncopated pace. It's a country that has coined the word alma, or soul, for its national identity. Spain is the second largest country in Europe after France. It covers an area only slightly larger than the state of California. Bordered by the Atlantic Ocean and Mediterranean Sea, Spain's southernmost tip is only 8 miles from Africa. It also includes the Canary and Balearic Islands. Spain shares the Iberian Peninsula with Portugal and is separated from France by the Pyrenees, whose average height is even greater than that of the Alps. Spain has attracted a steady procession of foreign occupants: trading Phoenicians, blue-eyed Celts from the north and Iberian tribesmen from the south, invading Romans, Visigoths, and Moors. It's also been the battleground for some of the bloodiest internal strife in history, from the Spanish Inquisition to the Spanish Civil War in the 1930s. At its peak in the 1500s, the Spanish Empire circled the globe. Spain is an intricate overlay of cultures brought by traders and invaders, from journeys abroad and insurrections within. It's the confluence of industry and agriculture, where ancient tradition holds on tenaciously while the next century bangs at the door. Spain maintains 4 distinctive languages and 7 dialects, a diversity that keeps the country regionalized. Virtually all roads lead to Madrid, since it's at the center of Spain. There's a saying here that the height of human happiness is to go to the part of heaven that has a view of Madrid. Barajas, Madrid's international airport, services an extensive network of domestic flights. Madrid has been the capital of Spain since 1561. Prior to that time, it was nothing more than a fortress, a no-man's land that divided north from south. Today, Madrid is one of the most kinetic cities in Europe, while still paying homage to its past. There are monuments to Cibeles, the goddess of fertility, and Neptune, protector of the seas. The city's main arteries radiate from the Puerta del Sol, which is at the center of Madrid. All distances in Spain are measured from the plaza as a 0 point. Madrid has the country's largest bull ring, with a bullfight museum next door, and a modern soccer stadium where the famed home team Real Madrid plays. The royal palace, called the Palacio de Oriente, is so extravagant that Napoleon claimed his brother Joseph, then King of Spain, had better lodgings than Napoleon's own at Tuileries. Designed by Italian masters Sacchetti and Sabatini, the palace is decorated with art and artifacts by some of the most gifted talents in history: Goya, Bernini, Caravaggio, El Greco, Rubens, and Velázquez. The salons, libraries, music rooms, and reception halls are hung with some of the most valuable tapestries in the world, woven by Belgian masters from the days when Spain ruled the Low Countries. When Joseph Bonaparte initiated plans for the Prado, it marked the first attempt to make Spanish art accessible to the Spanish people. Today, the museum houses more than 6,000 paintings, including Goya's 2 celebrated Majas, one clothed, the other not. Rumor had it that the model was the Duchess of Alba, and as recently as 1945, the Alba family had the Duchess's body exhumed in order to compare her measurements with those of the real model. nothing conclusive was proven. One block from the Prado, Picasso's Guernica has been on display in the Casón del Buen Retiro since 1981. The Plaza Mayor is now a subdued version of its outspoken past. Its balconies could hold more than 50,000 spectators who came to see bullfights, coronations, parades, and canonizations. The last bullfight was held here in 1847. The last buses and trolleys to race through the plaza were banned in 1970. The plaza was built by Philip III in 1619. This equestrian statue of him dominates the center of the square. Besides festive events, the plaza was a forum for auto da fe, the burning of heretics, one of which was such a popular spectacle that enough nobles turned up to fill all 476 balconies. The Calle Cuchilleros, the Street of Knives, is just down the stairs at the end of the plaza. It is famous for Soprano de Botines at number 17. Ernest Hemingway immortalized this address in his novel The Sun Also Rises. It has been a popular haunt ever since. With only 5 million residents, there's one bar for every 600 people in Madrid. On the Calle Cuchilleros, there's an abundance of little bars spilling music and the smell of red wine into the air. It's also the place to indulge in some tertulia, as Café Chat is known. The Spanish day begins with a late breakfast, usually coffee and rolls. Lunch is the big meal of the day. It's enjoyed sometime between 1 and 4 in the afternoon. Supper starts late in the evening. Restaurants are open from 8 p.m., but a Spaniard wouldn't think of sitting down to dine before 10:30. On the Calle Cuchilleros, number 1 is Las Cuevas de Luis Candelas, a restaurant built in a cave to commemorate Luis Candelas, a local outlaw who became a folkloric Robin Hood. It is said that Candelas lived in the caves below the Plaza Mayor. Waiters are dressed in period costume that in the old days included flintlock pistols in the belts. The Parque del Retiro is one of Spain's most popular parks, but it wasn't always that way. From the 17th century until 1868, the Retiro was a hunting ground for the aristocracy. Today it holds much tamer diversions. The Retiro is lined with fountains and statues and hosts everything from an annual dog show to art exhibitions. Madrid's Gran Via has become one of Europe's premier shopping strips, and nowhere is post-Franco prosperity more apparent. In just one decade, Spain catapulted from being an isolated, repressed culture to sporting some of the most current products of the day. On the Gran Via, there are also some of the most stunning price tags to match. Madrid is famous for its monumental statues. Among them is Philip IV. This equestrian statue was designed by Velázquez, cast in Florence, and supposedly mathematically computed by Galileo. In Madrid, the ultimate local specialty is cochinillo, suckling pig, 21 days old, no more than 9 pounds. It is basted with butter, onions, salt, lots of paprika, bay leaves, garlic, lemon, parsley, thyme, and white vinegar. Paella, considered the national dish, is a Valencian specialty. It must be cooked in open, shallow pans for best results. There's also gazpacho from Andalusia, the cold tomato and vegetable soup flavored with vinegar. Legend has it that gazpacho was a Roman military ration and that this was the vinegar the Roman soldier gave to Christ on the cross. Barcelona is famous for its large sausages and zarzuela, a hearty fish soup that's more like a stew. There are chicken, duck, partridge, and lamb dishes on most menus. But seafood is the mainstay of the Spanish diet. Whether inland or on the coast, the fresh catch of the day is raced to restaurants all over the country. Spaniards love their wine. It's often drunk with each meal of the day, yet it is rarely consumed to excess. Just 1 hour from Madrid, in the foothills of the Guadarrama Mountains, is the Escorial. It has been described as everything from the eighth wonder of the world to a monotonous symphony of stone. This palace monastery was commissioned by Philip II in 1563. Philip was an ailing, introverted king with an aggressive zeal for religion. He preferred to surround himself with monks instead of courtiers, so the Escorial contains 300 monk cells. Add to that more than 2,000 windows, 1,200 doors, and 100 miles of passageways, and the Escorial is large enough to be classified as a city. Almost all Spanish kings since Charles V are buried here, as are all queens who gave birth to sons. Another side trip from Madrid combines two destinations, Avila and Segovia. The perfectly restored walled city of Avila is only 69 miles away. On the way to Avila, there are Roman roads high in the Gredos Mountains, just as they were when the legions marched across Spain. At 3,700 feet, Avila is the highest provincial capital in Spain. It was made famous by Saint Teresa, who took a vow of austerity and devoted her life to reforming the Carmelite order. She was the daughter of nobles of Jewish ancestry who sent their daughter to a Carmelite convent to protect her from the Inquisition. When Teresa claimed to be having conversations with Christ and insisted that the Carmelites relinquish their servants and their silver, she became very unpopular. Today, monuments to Teresa abound. 1 hour's drive from Avila is Segovia, perhaps Spain's most poetic city. This intricately planned city is framed between the muscular form of a Roman aqueduct and the graceful pinnacles of the Alcázar. Remnants of the Roman occupation are still in evidence today. The aqueduct measures 2,400 feet long, 102 feet high. Its enormous arches are wide enough to accommodate 4 lanes of traffic. The aqueduct was built without any mortar, and in medieval times it was believed that the devil erected the stones in one night. The aqueduct still brings water from nearby mountain springs to the city. Nearby stands the 12th century Alcázar, where Isabella was crowned Queen of Castile. Her marriage to Ferdinand of Aragon united Catholic Spain against the Moorish invaders. The Alcázar is also where King Alfonso the Wise dared speculate that the earth moved around the sun. At that moment, a bolt of lightning is said to have slashed across the sky, and Alfonso swore to repent for his sin by wearing a penitential cord for the rest of his life. All Spanish cities are graced by narrow, winding streets. Pedestrians may have to step into a doorway to allow traffic to pass. Spain hosts a network of hotels called paradors. These government-owned inns, 86 in all, occupy restored castles, convents, palaces, and mansions. Spaniards have converted relaxation into an art form. American author Washington Irving wrote that here there are two classes of people to whom life seems one long holiday, the very rich and the very poor. One, because they need do nothing, and the other, because they have nothing to do. 43 miles south of Madrid is Toledo. Built into the slope of a gorge, Toledo is bordered on three sides by the Tajo River. The capital of Visigoth Spain for nearly 150 years, Toledo was then occupied by Moors for 400 years and became the capital of Catholic Spain for nearly 500 years. The city is a veritable cascade of tan buildings, terracotta roofs, and tortuous cobblestone streets. It is the living vision that El Greco immortalized in his canvases. Since it's officially a national treasure, even new buildings must conform to the styles of the 12th to 15th centuries. Toledo was the capital of Spain's Jewish community, with some 12,000 Jews residing in the city during the 12th century. Unlike most of Spain, Toledo had a relatively peaceful history, with Christians, Moors, and Jews living side by side.
Cathedrals are to Spain what skyscrapers are to New York,
said travel writer Jan Morris, and the Toledo Cathedral is one of Spain's finest examples. There are 22 chapels, there are 750 stained glass windows, and the bell in the slender tower weighs more than 17 tons. Once the site of a Visigothic church and then a mosque, the cathedral took more than 260 years to complete. It stands as a classic example of Spanish Gothic architecture, with all the vastness and heaviness of the Spanish temperament and Moorish flair thrown in for spice. Nowhere is the Mudéjar overlap of Spanish and Moorish tastes more apparent. Inside are works by El Greco, Bellini, Goya, and Van Dyck. Born Domenikos Theotokopoulos in Greece, El Greco arrived in Toledo more than 400 years ago. The El Greco House and Museum is in an old Jewish quarter. He never actually lived at that address. His home was close by, but the structure is no longer standing. Today, his painting View of Toledo is the model by which all visitors compare the city. Little has changed since. Toledo is famous for inlaid Damascene work, introduced by Moors from Damascus. Patterns are cut into copper and filled by hammering in gold and silver wire. It's now called Toledo work. Of all its craftswork, Toledo is most proud of its swords. Toledanos have been making swords since the Phoenicians first arrived. The swords must be made of the durable Toledo steel, heated until it is red hot, beaten by a master craftsman to the proper temper and sharpness, straightened again and again, then plunged into water from the River Tajo, which is said to have special qualities for tempering steel. Toledo craftsmen helped arm the Roman legions. They also devised the deadly scimitar for Moorish cavalrymen. To own a Toledo blade was a sign of prestige for Renaissance duelists. Cortés and his conquistadores bore down on Aztec Mexico with Toledo swords in hand. Boarding parties in the Caribbean carried Toledo cutlasses. Handle grips are still crafted by hand. In finished form, the Toledo blade emerges like silver. For many people, Andalusia is Spain. It's the place where the Moors left their greatest mark. Andalusia is the land of dancing gypsies and clacking castanets, of sandy beaches and olive groves. It's the land of sol y sombra, of sun and shadow, where you can still see donkeys and pack mules padding along, dazzling white houses, lithe men on horseback, and bullfights. Cordoba was the capital of Moorish Spain. In the 10th century, it was the wealthiest, largest, and most civilized city in all of Europe. Cordoba's only peer was Baghdad, and it was second in size only to Constantinople. The Cordoba Mosque, called the Mezquita, contains a forest of 850 pillars. Marble, onyx, granite, and jasper reflect a spectrum of colors, and the exquisite mosaics of the mihrab, or prayer niche, are testament to the glory of Moorish Spain. After the Catholic king's retaking of Spain, the mosque became the Church of the Virgin of the Assumption. Chapels were built against the interior walls, and the north facade was closed off. In 1526, Charles V sanctioned a church to be built in the center of the mosque, after which he remarked regretfully that the builders of the cathedral had destroyed something unique in order to construct something common. The Moors built a renowned university that fostered the study of philosophy, science, and agriculture. They introduced Europe to sugar, eggplant, oranges, and watermelon. They brought the oval guitar and kettle drums, Arabic numerals, algebra, and, of course, paper. Today, Cordoba is renowned for its silversmiths and leather craftsmen. Since the 1950s, it has undergone a modern-day renaissance, and Cordoba's population has doubled to 300,000. The Bullfighting Museum contains memorabilia of the greatest matadors of all time, El Cordobés, Lagartijo, and Manolete, who was killed in the ring in 1947. The old Jewish quarter is a small reminder of a large part of Spain's past. The Jews, who had been savagely persecuted by the Visigoths, helped the Moors conquer Spain. They were allowed to flourish under the Caliphate and produced outstanding leaders, such as Maimonides, physician, philosopher, and codifier of the Talmud. The most festive and flirtatious city in Andalusia is indisputably Seville. It's no wonder it was chosen to host the world's biggest party, the 1992 World's Fair, called the Age of Discovery. Even Saint Teresa admitted that anyone who could escape Seville without sinning was ahead of the game. Of the people in Seville, it is said they have three occupations: to dance, to fight bulls, and to go to church. Cervantes is believed to have conceived Don Quixote while he was a guest at the Seville prison. Don Juan pursued his amorous interludes in the mansions of Seville. Seville has inspired four great operas: Don Giovanni, The Marriage of Figaro, Carmen, and The Barber of Seville. Don Jose met his Carmen by the old tobacco factory. He was lured by her siren's charms, only to be destroyed by passion. Then there was the cunning Barber of Seville, who snipped his way into other people's business, although it is possible to just get a haircut in Seville. The city pulses with the stamp of flamenco heels and the wailing cries of the cante hondo, the deep song. Pain and suffering are the soul of the cante hondo.
Si mi corazón tuviera vidrieras de cristal, te asomarías y lo verías llorar gotas de sangre.
If my heart had window panes of glass, you would look in and see it cry drops of blood. Seville was the most coveted victory of the Reconquista. When Seville was back in Spanish hands, it was said that Christ triumphed over Mohammed. In honor of the occasion, the town planners decided, let us build a church that is so large that the world will think us mad. In fact, the Seville Cathedral surpassed in size only by St. Peter's in Rome and St. Paul's in London. One single aisle is as large as the entire nave and choir of Westminster Abbey. The tomb of Christopher Columbus is here, although some say he's buried in the Dominican Republic and others say his bones lie in Cuba. There are relics of the saints, Saint Sebastian, Saint Isidore, and Saint Ferdinand, the king who liberated Seville from the Moors, who is buried in the royal chapel. There are paintings by Murillo, Zurbarán, and Goya, a great cross of amethyst and gold that once belonged to a cardinal. Carved figures of cherubim dripping with 2,000 grapes, each one a pearl. In the royal chapel, the Virgin Mary's crown is changed every month. It is said that Ferdinand carried the same statue into battle with him. In another chapel is Murillo's Vision of San Antonio. The kneeling Saint Antonio was once cut out of the painting, but has been restored. They say the painting was once stolen and sold to a powerful New York banker and was later returned. Alongside the cathedral are the Archives of the Indies, a block-square Renaissance building designed by Juan de Herrera, creator of the Escorial. Inside are thousands of leather volumes cataloging accounts and conquests from the Age of Discovery. There are also maps, copies of letters from Columbus to his son, and a letter by Cervantes asking for a job. Seville straddles the banks of the Guadalquivir River, once a great waterway, although today there often isn't enough water to navigate. It was down the Guadalquivir that Columbus sailed his ships from Cadiz to Seville. Precious cargo of Peruvian silver was transported in the other direction. And for all navigators, by sea or by land, Seville's beacon is the Giralda Tower. One rewarding way to see Seville is by horse-drawn carriage, with a guide to point out places of interest. Many of the buildings around the Plaza de España are remnants of the Spanish-American Exposition of 1929. The small moat is a popular course for novice rowers, and ceramic crests of all the provinces of Spain line the walkways. In In the middle of the Guadalquivir, a special site on the island of La Cartuja was chosen for the 1992 World's Fair. More than 350,000 trees and shrubs were transplanted to give shady relief during the scorching summer months of the fair. And several new bridges were built across the river to the fairgrounds. The expo is just one example of the new industry, commerce, and jobs coming to Andalusia. Traditionally the poorest area of Spain, Andalusia is now the fastest growing region in the country. Semana Santa, or Holy Week, reaches a feverish pitch throughout Spain. Each parish parades at least one float depicting scenes from the lives of Mary and Jesus. Satin, pearls, gold, nothing is too extravagant. The floats are followed by members of trade guilds wearing capuchones, the pointed hoods made infamous by the Spanish Inquisition. In Seville, every bell in town announces the Saturday night devotionals. The week after Semana Santa is the Feria de Abril, the spring fair, one of the most colorful pageants in the world. A paseo of traditional costumes parades through town. Food and wine flow in excess, and the gaiety continues well into the night. Companies and families rent tents along the boulevards so they don't have to go home for the full week of the fair. Every evening, a huge fireworks display kicks off the nocturnal revelry, which can continue well into the next day. The feria also marks the peak of the bullfighting season in Seville, with a corrida every day. The ritual of the corrida is innately Spanish, yet many visitors view the art form with apprehension. Contrary to popular belief, the bull doesn't respond to the redness of the matador's cape. Bulls are colorblind. The special orange sand of Seville is exported to bull rings worldwide. It is favored by matadors because it doesn't raise dust. The poet Francisco de Icaza wrote,
No hay en la vida nada como la pena de ser ciego en Granada.
There is no pain in life so cruel as to be blind in Granada. It's just 160 miles east of Seville. This is a distinctly Moorish town. Traces of Granada's Roman and Visigothic past have all but disappeared. While Columbus was venturing into the New World, Ferdinand and Isabella were fighting to expel the last North Africans and Jews from Spain. The last Moorish king was ousted from Granada in 1492. He reputedly sighed when he looked at the Alhambra Palace for the last time. His mother said,
Weep, my son, like a woman, for what you would not fight for like a man.
When Ferdinand and Isabella finally conquered Granada, the whole of Spain was in their hands. They chose to be buried where the Moors were finally defeated. Isabella's collection of religious paintings and Ferdinand's sword are on display in the Royal Chapel, as are the flags carried by Spanish troops when Granada surrendered. The Alhambra is actually a series of palaces. It's probably the most impressive result in the world of combining clay, wood, and tile. The Alcazaba is the oldest part. Originally it was a fortress whose bells warned of approaching danger and signaled times for irrigation. grounds of the Generalife have been called the Gardens of Seduction. The Alhambra once had 30 towers, some of them ornate palaces. Charles V, who had already allowed the alteration of the Cordoba Mosque, tore down a portion of the Alhambra to make room for his grand Renaissance palace. The Alhambra suffered further desecration during the Napoleonic invasions. Washington Irving was the U.S. ambassador to Spain in the 1820s, and his book, Tales of the Alhambra, inspired Queen Isabel II to begin restoration. The patios and towers are poetically named the Court of the Myrtles, the Court of Lions, the Hall of Ambassadors, the Hall of the Two Sisters, and the Room of Secrets, which might better be named the Room of No Secrets, since the acoustics make the slightest whisper audible. The snow-peaked Sierra Nevada are within 1 hour's drive of the city. Skiers visit the slopes from November to May at 8,000 feet, and at higher elevations they're skiing year-round. The Moors introduced agricultural products found previously only in the Orient, the Middle East, and North Africa. Today, Spain is self-sufficient in that holy trilogy of wheat, wine, and olives. But some 60% of Spain has never been cultivated, and geographers say that half the soil of Andalusia has blown into the sea. The sea attracts other things besides soil. The Costa del Sol is one of the biggest draws for visitors to Spain and covers more than 180 miles of Mediterranean coast. Malaga is the capital of the Costa del Sol. During the winter months, it has more sunny days than any other European city but one, and that's in southern Sicily. It also generates a lot of heat at night. Just as Spain favors late dining hours, entertainment begins late, with young people going to discotheques at midnight and living it up till dawn. The Costa del Sol is a popular stopover for sailors. The flags of many nations fly from luxury yachts and sailboats in harbors all along the coast. This country of 39 million people attracts over 50 million tourists each year. Many of them come for Spain's beaches. For many, the Costa del Sol has become overcrowded and overdeveloped. For others, it holds exactly what they're looking for, the excitement of a popular destination. 390 miles northeast of Madrid is Barcelona, Spain's frontrunner in the post-Franco evolution. A cultural center for all of Europe, Barcelona is like a wise child with an independent, stubborn streak. Its residents speak Catalan, a language that has as much in common with Provençal French as it does with Spanish. This is the capital of Catalonia province, and it's been at odds with Castilian Spain for centuries. There are still separatists who would like to sever all ties with the rest of Spain. The Sardana, the signature dance of Catalonia, is a community event. The joined hands of the dancers symbolizes the struggle to keep the Catalan language and customs alive. Franco was so threatened by its message that he outlawed the Sardana in public squares. Today, it is performed in front of Barcelona's cathedral. Barcelona is known as Spain's most progressive and liberal city. It has given rise to such great innovators as Miró, Dali, Gaudí, and Pablo Casals. Barcelona is also an industrial workhorse and a haven for shoppers. The shady tree-lined Ramblas forms a continuous promenade almost a mile long. Spaniards are an extremely social breed, and the general rule is that crowds are for joining, not avoiding. The Ramblas is a hive of activity, day and night. Along the Ramblas is the Gran Teatro del Liceo, Barcelona's opera house. At the end of the Ramblas are the docks. Barcelona has been a major shipping port for centuries, and when Columbus returned to this port from his landmark voyage, the Castilian Queen Isabel forbade Catalonian merchants from ever trading in the New World. Ironically, a statue of Columbus guards the harbor. High on the hill of Montjuic is an amusement park, open green spaces, and a congregation of museums. There's an archaeology museum, a museum devoted to Catalan art and ceramics, and a museum devoted to famous native son Joan Miró. Miró's career spanned more than 70 years, and this collection traces his artistic development. The Montjuic Stadium was built in 1929 for the World's Fair. There were high hopes that the stadium would be the site for the 1936 Olympics, but Berlin was the victor in that competition. After another unsuccessful bid in 1972, Barcelona was finally chosen to host the Olympics in 1992. Barcelona also celebrates the art of Pablo Picasso. The world's largest collection by one of the 20th century's greatest and most influential artists is on display in a 14th century palace. Picasso was admitted to the Barcelona School of Fine Art at age 14 and had his own studio by age 18. He is hailed as a master of the classic, neoclassic, impressionistic, cubist, and surrealistic schools. Picasso worked 10 to 12 hours a day and was said to attack each blank canvas as a matador attacks a bull. Spanish architect Antonio Gaudí was one of the founding fathers of modernism and left the major body of his work in Barcelona. The dripping, biomorphic shapes of Gaudí's buildings are as avant-garde today as they were at the time their construction began. Gaudí had an almost maniacal avoidance of all flat surfaces, said one critic. It's apparent in the Casa Milà apartment house, the Parque Güell, and the Church of the Sacred Family. Begun in 1882, Gaudí expected La Sagrada Familia to take 200 years to complete. When he was struck by a cable car in 1926, his body was buried in the crypt of the unfinished cathedral. Construction continues to this day. A popular side trip from Barcelona is the mountain of Montserrat, inspiration for Wagner's opera Parsifal. Creased into the mountainside is a monastery where thousands of pilgrims come each year to venerate the image of the Black Virgin, protector of the province. The monastery was founded in 880 and sacked by Napoleon in 1811. Today, some 300 Benedictine monks tend the shrine, work the ceramic and goldsmithing shops, and distill Aromas de Montserrat, an herbal liqueur sold in the snack bar. Northeast of Barcelona is the Costa Brava, a 130-mile strip of rocky beaches and fishing villages. Along the coast is Figueres, a charming little town with a most unpredictable attraction, the Salvador Dali Museum. This surrealist savant was born in Figueres and lived here during the last years of his life. Housed in an old theater adorned by behemoth eggs, the museum covers the whole range of the artist's sublime absurdity. Spain is a country of contrasts. It has evolved from the crossing of cultures and from the diversity of its landscapes. It's a country steeped in pageantry, culture, history, and governed by an uncompromising zest for life. Of the people of Spain, it is said that the Catalan saves, the Andalusian sings, the Basque acts, the Castilian dreams, the Extremaduran fights, and the Galician yearns for what is not to be. But they all have one thing in common: their overwhelming sense of pride and their gratitude for everything under the sun.
International Video Network brings you the greatest adventures in video entertainment. Award-winning documentaries from Reader's Digest, exploring the masterworks of man and nature. Travel planning videos from Fodors, revealing looks at the people, places, and cultures of the world. Rand McNally Video Expeditions, taking you to some of the most remote and dangerous places on Earth. Rand McNally Video Travelers, whirlwind tours you can enjoy from the comfort of your living room. Super Cities, celebrating the best-loved cities of the world. And Video Visits, whisking you away to exotic, romantic, and popular destinations. International Video Network. Great adventures in video. See your local video retailer or call International Video Network at 1-800-669-4486, extension 850 for your free catalog, featuring more than 250 travel, documentary, and special interest videos.